Well, we probably need to move on to Thrawn.
Thrawn
Right.
Ascendancy Lesser Evil.
Yeah.
I suppose we should, Aaron.
We need to talk about that a bit
It is
here.
time. So, if you've been following along, this is our 6th Thrawn book. We had the
It is.
first trilogy, which, from what I understand, came like one at a time, right? Like Legend of Korra, it's like, you guys get a season. All right, do another season now. Do another book now. And then for this one, he was like, do you want to do 3 books? Do 3 books. So he has a
Okay.
lot more of an interconnected story in this latter trilogy.
Yeah, but well, because that makes more sense then, because each
Yeah.
book that we read in the original trilogy, when I was done with it, I was like, okay, I see what we did here. This
Exactly,
is cool.
yeah.
And they all had kind of a wrap up.
Yeah.
And the last book was not my favorite of the Thrawn books.
And it was like a middle...
It was it was a middle of the
Yeah.
of the story here. It also I really like the Chiss. I think I really like Thrawn. Thrawn I really like. I also really like Arlani.
Arlon is sweet.
Arlani's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a few other characters that I've grown to really enjoy in this as well. But
I was very curious about what you thought of this book, by the way.
I
As I was reading, I was kind of like, what do Aaron think about this?
like this one a lot more than the last book.
Me too. Yeah.
It's the longest book I think we've done.
I think
It was like-
it is
it was like-
the longest Star Wars book other than another Timothy Zahn book.
Really?
Yeah.
There's another Timothy Zahn book. I didn't. I thought we just finished them all. I
No,
thought he only wrote about Thrawn.
He did. There's a book that he did in the old Legends called Outbound Flight that this book references.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll get into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no, as an overall kind of statement, I thought that the story with this was, I had more enjoyment, I think, with this one.
Yeah.
I felt like there was more Thrawn, maybe, in this one than there was in the last book.
Sure, yeah. We have a very expanded cast of characters in this
Yeah.
trilogy, and Thrawn sometimes would fall on the wayside. I get
Yeah.
you.
And also in this one, we had a little bit more Arlani, which we had established in the previous books. We had a lot more Samacro, I think.
Yeah.
Especially working with I gotta look it up. Thalia.
Thalia.
I always want to put an S in there.
I know.
I don't know if that's because of Thras or what the reason is, but Thalia is
Thalius.
Thalius. We had a lot more of her and
Yeah.
Samacro,
Sure.
which I like that as well. And more story within figuring out who Jixtus is,
Yeah.
right? Which I'm like,
the Grisk.
okay, this is really cool. I like this, but also we don't really get the Grisk.
You don't.
Like, we don't get a lot of Grisks, really.
I mean,
Jixtus,
the mystery
you know?
is really cool. The idea that the Grisk are that formidable and you don't know what they look like, right?
I don't know.
They're hooded or masked. Like, no one knows what a Grisk looks
Until I
like.
see a picture, I probably will do a terrible job at telling you what this thing looks like, regardless of what they say in
they-
the book,
you know,
too.
they-
So, but yeah,
They
Jixtus,
don't want you to know what they
Jixtus
look
has his
like.
hood. He's wearing
Yeah.
a mask all the time. Like, you don't really know what's
But it
under
makes
there.
me think, like, what if they're just chiss?
I mean, it's possible. They could be anything,
What
you
if
know?
there's, like, other chiss? I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat where I like this better than the last book. Now that we've completed this trilogy, I think I can appreciate everything a little bit more. It's still not necessarily my favorite, just because this is almost kind of like the Mace Windu book. It was a little more science fiction and science fantasy for me, which isn't bad. It's just not my favorite part of Star Wars. I want a
okay.
little bit more fantasy in Star Wars. So having Thrawn as the hook to keep me interested in this did still work with me throughout all 3 books. But some of the other characters, like there'd be times where I'd come to a character's name and be like, okay, I've heard this name. Who's this person again? I have to go look it up. Oh, okay, that's why I know, because they changed their name.
There is that happens. There's
There's a lot of syllables, in each name,
and people get promotions
Yeah.
and different titles and stuff too. Trying to understand the Chiss Ascendancy.
Nexus. I gave notes.
I know Nexus.
Exactly, that's what I want, notes for a book.
I have to-
But
I'm-
we greatly appreciate
I
it.
have
Thank you
to
so
I have
much,
to take
Nexus.
my notes and I have to look
Yeah.
at Nexus's notes, and then I'm like just listening to the book, trying to keep it all in my head.
I know, it's hard to
So-
stay invested when I have to.
There's I with everything that like I think this does that hinders me personally
Yeah.
as far as like picturing it and getting the image in my head. And I've talked about that, and I want to have to talk about it every time. But
Sure.
I enjoyed this one so much more than the last one.
Yeah.
Um,
What the hell was that noise?
sounds like a train. So
A
Choo-choo
train in
guys.
space?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what it remind me of. There's something outside. I don't know
I don't
what's
know.
outside.
It's a weird noise. I don't know if Gonk picks it up or not.
Yeah, Gonk. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask the captain. But I mean, the story of the characters, I really liked. I enjoyed Thras, which
Yeah.
I believe it was him who was in most of the memories in this one.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And the build-up with him and Thrawn and like the brothers thing, I thought was really interesting. The just that general story all the way up until the end.
Yeah.
Because he Thras is gone and he wants to like try to just kind of reflect on his brother.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's really kind of cool.
Yeah.
And the way that the Chiss are with the, well, I'm an actual blood cousin.
I'm a cousin,
and you were taken from another family, so you're accepted, but you're not really family.
It's almost
but
like
you're kind of family.
It's like the mob, right? Like you can be a made man in a family, like you're not really a part of the family, but you're so awesome that we see you as it now, right? And these are just kind of like feudal families fighting each other or working together.
Yeah.
You know, like the Ascendancy is still pretty cool in terms of like, hey, we don't attack people, don't say attack us first, like
sure.
I can
They say that, but they also want to keep everyone out.
agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And they were really mad that Thrawn like made friends with other aliens without them being able to choose that.
Sure.
So they're also very like, leave us alone, but if you come this way, we're going to take you out.
I get it. I'm just saying, leave us alone is a good place to start.
Sure.
for a galactic power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But no, I really did. I enjoyed the book. What were we just talking about before that though? I had another point. Thrask. So I mentioned Outbound Flight, which is another Timothy Zahn book from back in the day, and it was actually Nexus. I don't know if you know this, or someone can look it up, but I think it had like a tease of the Yuvin Vong in that one as well. But Thrask is a character from there. He's actually Thrawn's brother. They're real brothers in that one. I believe so.
Okay.
It's been 20. I don't know how many years since that book came out, but it's been a long time since I've seen that book or read that book. That was back when I was reading books when I was young. But anyway, they were actually real brothers. So I like that, much like what Dave Filoni will bring stuff into new canon, like Timothy Zahn also brought in a character he wrote into his new continuity of Chiss and kind of made them brothers again. I thought that was a really sweet thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I liked Thras and Thrawn's relationship, the growth, and the by the end, I mean, I was sad for Thrawn on the story of it all and stuff. So I did like that. I also really enjoyed Simacro.
Yeah.
Like Simacro spends so much time where like I think he trusts Thrawn, but he doesn't trust Thrawn sometimes. But he also has his own issues with Thalia, Thalius, where, well, she's a spy. And like we had in like, I don't know, the first book where, who was it? The one guy was like, tell me anything Thrawn does. Sure, I can't think of.
Tell me anything Thrawn does.
Yeah, exactly. He's like the Syndiclair or whatever it was. I have his name on here. I'm trying to find it.
Thurfian.
Thurfian. Yes, that's it. So like he's like, I know she's spying. Yeah. Like there's been that story I think over the course of this trilogy, and like we finally get to it. It's like, okay, look, I'm gonna tell you this. It's like I knew it. It's like no, but I'm on Thrawn's side and I'm trying to help him because like she also had like the old Chiss. Shoot.
I can't remember the names. You can't answer this movie.
I keep skipping the names. I keep trying to think of the titles.
Oh,
he's like the patriarch.
Sure. The patriarch,
right?
Of the family,
before I think Thurfian, like before he keeps getting boosted and stuff too. Like whenever he talks, he's like, "Hey, we brought Thrawn, and I want you to take care of him and watch out for him." So like it's funny getting to see what happens with her, and then seeing like Simacro being like, "I'm gonna get her. I know I'm gonna get her," and you're like, "Oh man, I wish they would work together." And then by the end, like you have them kind of finally opening up. And there's like this element where it's like, well, I can't disobey an order, but I also have to take care of the Skywalkers, and like he's like, so we're gonna go and do this, and he has that kind of.
We're gonna go and do this.
I like that he's like he'll bend the rules, but still follow the rules to like the way that it can work for him, and I really thought that like their I don't know, their relationship as it went on, I also enjoyed. In this book a lot.
My favorite. I don't know if you had anything to expand on that, but my favorite stuff was the Skywalker stuff this time. Like, there's some incredibly dark stuff when it comes to the Skywalkers.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, first Thrawn just sticking that dude in his Skywalker's chamber so that
the Magus,
the Magus,
Magi's?
yeah, because we have Cheery. and her what's supposed to be force powers that go away, right? Like the female Chiss, they get these force powers when they're young, but they go away, and we don't really know exactly what happens. But we have some really interesting revelations in this book, with Cheery like developing powers.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and Thalia also, like, at one point, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something where she's like, "Oh, well, what about this?" And he's like, "Well, I never told you that." It's like, "Wait, you never told me that." Well, how did I know that? I swear you told me that.
Yeah.
And like, there's an element there where it's like, wait, so is her power diminished, or is it just like it has weakened? She hasn't been using. Like, what's going on with that element there? It's still something there.
And we have this revelation. I can't remember the name of the character right now, but it turns out someone is responsible for erasing the Skywalker's minds, and it's dark, and it's you're doing that to children.
Yeah.
And it's really it really makes you think about like how the Jedi treat children in terms of like, oh, you're too old because you have too much experience.
Yeah.
Whereas the Chiss,
you have too much connection to stuff.
You have too much connection to stuff. Where the Chiss don't really have, they're not spoiled for force sensitives, so they have to like take what they have and mold them into something useful.
Yeah. Let's remove your memories.
They take those children's memories. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, I wanted more of it.
Sure.
Especially with the revelation of something that, Thalia said forgotten. Right?
Thalia's forgot?
Oh, I'm sorry. What's her name?
Wait, not Cheery. I'm assuming you're talking about when she went to the other planet,
yeah.
right? Because I can't remember what that person's name was, but they get to the revelation. Because like we had back in, was it book 1 or was it the original trilogy? At some point, Thrawn mentions about having a sister.
He does.
A sister? Where's his sister at?
Yeah. What's the name? Nexus got it. Borkia. Borica.
Yep. That doesn't sound very chissy, but we'll go with it.
Yeah.
But Thalia goes and talks to someone, and I like a lot of this. I mean, I don't like the Skywalker stuff because, like you said, it's really dark.
Yeah. It's the more engaging part of the story for me personally.
Sure. Well, with that, at one point, like she went to the planet.
Yeah.
We had that with the reveal. And then I was like, wait a minute. By the end of the book, I was like, wait, did I miss a thing? Or is that just where we ended with that? Like, we just didn't do.
Yeah.
I kept going like, and I was like, and I started trying to go back. I'm like, what chapter was that in? Like, I kept waiting for more to come back. And then I started going back. I'm like, did I miss something? Or what happened with that? Because I kept waiting for it to come back up, and it didn't come back up. So, but I guess if it was in the original trilogy that we had him mention his sister and not knowing where she went or whatever, like, I guess it would make sense that he wouldn't have found her yet, or that she wouldn't have told him. Or given that we have a huge battle and stuff, and then things start kind of going a little crazy after that, like, there's a conversation of, like, we won't see Thrawn again.
Yeah.
Like, maybe she just never got to talk to him and tell him anything. Or maybe it was better not to tell him, or, I don't know.
Sure.
But I was kind of like, after that revelation moment, I was like, ooh, what are we going to do with this? And I was like, did we just drop it? Are we not doing it? So that was my only thing where I was like, well, what about the sister thing?
From what I understand, like, I don't think Timothy Zahn says he'll never write any more Thrawn books anymore, but he's done for now. So it could be one of those things where he's kind of like left some stuff to cover later if he wants to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I felt the same. I was like, that meeting's going to be cool. Nothing.
Yeah, what are we going to do with that?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I do want to say that on the next note that I really kind of had, I really enjoyed a lot of the combat aspects. Sure. Like, these aren't combats like gun battles or lightsaber fights. It's all like space combat stuff.
You really have to visualize, and for me, I really had to just kind of like take like a bird's eye view nest to try to understand the strategy and stuff sometimes.
And I turned everything into like Star Destroyers and stuff. I was just trying to picture what kind of stuff we had here with that too.
I wish.
But the way things work, how Thrawn is, like, sometimes I also feel like I wanted Thrawn to fail because he always succeeded, and I kept thinking like, oh, what if we see him fail and that's why he gets exiled, or what if we see him like,
sure.
what's his lowest point but he never has one. He's always getting better and he's always doing well, and he's like always right. It's like Sherlock Holmes, and like you always like, oh man, he's not gonna do well, but he always is ahead of everybody. He's always winning. But there were some things that I really liked in the combat. There was one of the fights where they were like after these one ships, and he like chased them into these nets that he shot ahead, or like they shot some missiles and then he like short hyper jumped to them and then talked to them, and they started wanting fighting, and he's like, all right, if you want to fight, let's fight. And like he anticipated them wanting to fight, and then the missiles he shot like 10 minutes ago showed up, and I was like,
it's really fun stuff.
I love these moments that have like these creative ways of him like, I'm going to beat you guys, and you don't even know that you've lost already. And it really kind of reflects to like Rebels and things.
It does.
It makes me excited for live action Thrawn and like some other combats that we can see of him, because he's so creative with that.
I think it lends itself to the book medium pretty well too, because if you're describing a lightsaber fight, well, what are you gonna do? Like, okay, he goes for the upper left shoulder, and then he went for a knee, and then he did this. Like you have to kind of like play around with how you describe it. Whereas you're describing military, armament and stuff like that. I think it's maybe a little better, more suited for book as opposed to visual. Like everything else.
There's a few times where like they would talk about like what the weapon was, and I'm like, I don't really know what that is. But if you just called it a missile or whatever, I'm like, I have a better visualization of that. But no, I thought the final battle was really cool too. Like just all the combat aspects that they wrote in this book.
Agreed.
I really liked. Even not Lakinda anymore. She's Zakinda?
I think so.
Is that what it was?
I kept thinking of Lacrissa from Baldur's Gate.
Oh yeah,
she's one of the tieflings.
But Zienda,
Zelinda.
Her and Roscoe. I think I have it written down here, but like there was a combat that they had, and like they had like there's a few times where like having to fake combats through the trilogy. There's a few times they fake combats, and I loved how a lot of those worked. And she also was like a real smart combatant.
She was,
and I believe it was her and her ship that was like, we'll take the hits for you while, we can't win against this guy, against, I think it was Jixtus, but we can buy you guys time for one of those guys to get here. And a lot of those I thought were really good. And the way that the people around Thrawn, like, worked together, even though, like, a lot of them are all different families or just the Chiss, like, military group as opposed to being part of, like, an actual family. They've, like, ascended to the point of, like, we are just for the defense of the Chiss. And, like, having them all kind of work around Thrawn, but, like, Thrawn and Arlani are also kind of peers and picture things really well, too, and notice things sometimes at the same time. And the peer aspect I thought was really good, because especially when we get Thrawn in the Empire, I feel like no one's his peer. Maybe Palpatine, you know what I mean? But like when we see him with the Empire, with other Imperials, like these guys are all idiots. Like no one, you get Constantine, who's like, why aren't you listening to this guy? Because he clearly knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
like
I mean, power scale next to Palpatine stuff because Palpatine can see the future. Like you have to give Thrawn like a hand, like you have to handicap him somehow to have like a good, like, competitive bout.
Yeah.
Maybe if they play like hollow chess or something.
Yeah. But there were some moments too, especially at the end, not on the combat side, but like talking about Arlani. We get to, eventually we have to get to the point of exiling Thrawn to the planet, or at least explaining why he's on that planet. In the original trilogy, he talks about being exiled, and I was always like, is this real? Thrawn usually doesn't lie, but maybe he would bend to truth to be able to get to where he wants to go, you know? So I was never sure what was going to happen with that, but we get to him being exiled from the Chiss. The Patriarch's like, you're going to be out. I think they were going to strip him of a myth, but they didn't strip him of the myth. But they're going to exile him to live on a planet for like the rest of his days. But it kind of seems like one of those things where, like, well, we'll put you out there, but like, maybe if we really need him, we'll go back and get him. But at least now we'll know where he is.
Like Napoleon.
Yeah. And the one thing I really liked was Arlani. She talks with I don't remember who she's talking to. Could be anybody. But whoever she talks to towards the end of the book starts telling about the plans and stuff. It starts with the B. Anyway, when talking with him, Thrawn and him had kind of come up with this idea where it's like, well, we I met this General Skywalker. There's something going on over there. We don't know about, the Grisk and what's going on with them. So we're going to go over here. We're going to find out if either A, they would be useful in our own combat that we're going to have over here, or B, if they're going to be a threat that we should like make sure we're aware of and know what's going on. And I liked a lot of that stuff that they were telling Arlani. But there was a moment when telling, it's like, we really didn't need another Chiss over here talking loudly, complaining about why Thrawn was gone. And she goes, who, me? And it was so sassy and sarcastic from what I felt like we usually had for Aralani that it made me chuckle.
I think she's earned that sass throughout the books.
And I really, Bakif, thank you, Nexus. That was who it was.
Yeah,
Bakif.
that's
right. And I really enjoyed that aspect of just getting a moment with Aralani that kind of caught me off guard for some reason, I guess, just being a little bit more, who are you talking about? And I thought that was really funny.
I think if we never get many of these characters back, she might be the one that I mourn the most.
Yeah. I do want to, was in the second book when Eli Vanto, I want more of, because I liked him a lot too. Was it him in the second book? Was he in the first, and then he was in the second, and he wasn't in the third? Because there was a point in the book like, where'd Eli? I wanted more Eli, but he went to Aralani. Yeah. I want, after having these stories with Aralani, I kind of want to re-go through that book and get Aralani, cool. In, I guess, a chronological order aspect.
Sure.
I saw where, it's in the first and the third book. He's not in the second book. Yeah. I knew he wasn't in something, and then I kind of missed him in this, but I'm like, it makes sense he's not here. He was with the Empire.
And to your point, rereading it might make me enjoy it even more, just because I enjoyed Star Wars because I rewatched it, because I watched it once.
This trilogy is definitely a book series that I would like to go through again. And I think
now that I have an idea of what everything is,
and trying to see where all the connections kind of go and what's happening with some parts of the story, I have a better idea of who some of these characters are. And I think it would do really well for me. I usually try to go through a book twice. This one was too big, I couldn't, and I feel like I started this one. I started this one right after the last Badonkagonk. Yeah, and I finished it last weekend. It took me a while to get through, as long as this book was, but. I think Aralani ended up becoming one of my favorites, and I liked her in the original trilogy of books that we read too when she showed up there. But I like her more now, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing I want to talk about, but I wanted to ask you on, but if you have another thing you wanted to say, I'll let you do that first.
The only thing I really have left is just talking about the transition from this characterization of Thrawn to our Rebels characterization of Thrawn.
Okay, I mean we can work on that then too, because one of the things I do want to talk about was Thrawn at the end of this book. Yeah. So if you want to go on your thoughts or whatever first.
As I was reading, we've read these two trilogies now of Timothy Zahn, the guy who created Thrawn, and he's doing this knowing that he's appeared in Rebels now, and he has a very specific way that he is in Rebels, and in my opinion, he's a little bit more evil. He's a little bit more will do anything to get something done, and I didn't really see that of this Thrawn until this book, or at least closer to it. Like, he has a moment or a couple of moments where it's like he will go too far to get his goal. Not quite orbital bombardment on a city like we saw in Rebels or whatever, but it's a little closer at least in this book for me.
Sure.
But in terms of the end, what were you wanting to cover?
One of the things I liked or didn't like. So the end of the book, we have the big battle that happens, right?
Yeah.
There's an element through the very end of the last book. They talk about the weapon Starflash.
Yes.
And then in this book too, there's talking about elements of that weapon, kind of getting an idea of what it is,
what it can do to a star, and that type of thing.
Yeah, they go over how bad this weapon is, and they kind of they vaulted it and stuff. And at one point, there's a part where Thrawn is needing something from the vault, and at the end of the book, in the fight, you find out what he has as his secret weapon was he got a gravity well. Yeah. And it's keeping people from being able to hyperspace away and kind of helping them in their fight, right?
Yep.
In the gravity well he got in
the Republic,
the other book, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I forget which one it was, but whatever. When he went and saw Skywalker, right? That was the thing he took.
Alliances?
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think.
But the gravity well later on when he's talking to I think it's Bakif again. Bakif is man, when you said you were gonna go to the vault, I thought you were gonna get Starflash, and his response to it was oh, I would have if I thought I needed it, and I was like, oh, okay. He's but I didn't think it was gonna be anything useful in this fight, but if I thought that that's what I needed to win this fight for the Chiss, he had a line where he said I would have used it to protect the Chiss. I would have done whatever the cost would have been. I will pay it.
That's you wrote it down. That's the line I was talking about when it came to I think I see Rebels Thrawn a little bit more there.
Yeah, Especially if you're looking at the idea of like, well, that's how he does it for the Chiss.
Yeah.
So whatever the cost in the Empire,
Yeah.
for these other people that maybe aren't the same things that he's protecting, like if his loyalty is really for the Chiss, and I have to appease the Emperor, I have to make sure I'm doing things he wants, I will do whatever it takes to make sure I achieve my goals so I can protect the Chiss.
Sure.
And if that's how he is, like him being more of an antagonist than he is a protagonist for the Chiss in these stories, I think fits really well with that. Because like there was a lot of times where I'm like, man, looking at him as a protagonist, like sometimes things don't gel well to me. But I think that little bit there, like if we could get in his head and understand more during Rebels times and stuff of like, what are his actual goals?
I agree.
I think maybe it gels a little bit more than I thought it would have.
I think if you want to read into it, you could say that like that's the influence of working for someone like the Emperor does to somebody. Like you might think, oh yeah, Thrawn and Palpatine, they could be peers, and Palpatine's gonna be like, okay, sure. I literally can use the dark side to influence those under me. You know, like it could just be that just Thrawn's nature of being in the Empire makes him more that way, you know, just by the nature of the veil of the dark side being so thick in the rule of the Empire. I also recognize that I made a mistake. The gravity well is from someone else. The Republic was the shield generator they were talking about. But yeah, the gravity well was alluded to in the first novel where Thras went missing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, after you said, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember he took something. So, okay, I see. Yeah, and I saw that, too, from that, so I was going to make that, too. But no.
You could, like, try to massage it a little bit and saying, like, you know, like, just being under the sway of the Empire, you know, forever will it dominate your destiny, that type of thing. Like, he's not as, you know, good-hearted as he thinks he is when he's under a fascist state.
Sure, yeah. He's not needing to try to protect all these people, right? He might be trying to appease the Emperor to have an ally to help him against the Grisk, to help protect the Chiss, maybe, you know? Or, you know, just trying to, like, find more of the weaknesses of the Empire so that if they're going to be an issue, if they're going to be someone... Because there's a lot of times where I get the feeling that Palpatine is also trying to kind of prod at what the Chiss are and what they can do, and like maybe we could go that way, you know, like he wants to control the galaxy.
He wants to control everything.
What's beyond the galaxy that he could control?
It probably
too,
bugs
you
him.
know?
There's people out there that think they're not under his sway.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I don't know. There was that element there. Like it felt so cold of Thrawn when so much of this trilogy, I didn't get that from him.
Yeah, I agree.
And like it got there, and
you didn't like that part you were saying? Or?
Well, I say as a don't like because I'm like, that's very bad guy, you know.
Oh, okay, I understand. Gotcha.
Like I said, I think it works really well with Rebels and some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're seeing him do some pretty bad things.
Sure.
And we didn't necessarily see him do, you know, he didn't use that weapon, but he's saying he would have if he thought he needed it to win. Yeah. So like when you get there to, you know, Lothal, and he needs to win.
Yeah. Well,
what am I going to do? You have that. What's my odds? Okay, I'm going to destroy everybody out here until you open it up. And if you're good guys, you're not going to want me to do that, right?
Yeah.
Ezra, you're going to come here on my ship and talk to the Emperor, right? Because if not, I'm killing everybody. Like, that's a Thrawn who will do anything at all costs, and he will pay it. Like, I think that fits more for me. And I'm curious live-action Thrawn after the Ahsoka series, like, into another Ahsoka season or more movies or whatever they do with it. I want to know his goal.
Yeah.
Now after the Emperor's gone, what is he doing? Why is he wanting to go with the, you know, working with Night Sisters or the, you know, taking his undead army or whatever it is he has? Like, what is he wanting to do when he gets back? And like, what's the overall goal he has? Because I always feel like he's a man with goals. He always knows what he's doing. He has plans all the time.
He feels like he's serving some purpose, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it is to rule over others. I don't know. I think that he got to the point where he just enjoyed competition so much that he just wants to be the best at this. So I don't know. He gets obsessive, especially in Ahsoka. It was funny, like, after I read the book, I was going around, like, looking at, like, some reviews and stuff, and so many people were like, I cannot wait to see how this factors into the upcoming live-action debut of Ahsoka. You know, and I'm like, didn't really factor into it.
It didn't really factor into that, no.
Not really.
But also, a lot of it was about trying to get him back to our galaxy, you know?
Yeah.
So I'll be curious to see what that's like. But the other thing that was interesting was like after having that moment and him saying that, like one of the next things that happened was like, here's a ring, and I'm going to give you this, and it was such an emotional moment of him getting back this ring, that it rehumanized him after him having this like real terrible kind of like, I'll do whatever it takes. And I don't know. It's just it's interesting. And you usually don't see Thrawn be emotional.
No.
You know, he's usually fairly just I don't know, emotionless. I don't know what other word I want to use, but restrained, yeah.
He doesn't put
analytical.
A lot of effort into it.
But like the ring is related to the snake symbol thing, right? Like I think we talked about it last book or something too.
Yeah, it is the symbol he will later put on his Star Destroyer.
Yeah,
the Chimera.
Yeah, so
and we see that in the Ahsoka series. Now we know,
and it came from this novel.
So
see, so
the twin snake symbol.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to have some more of these moments with Thrawn, because like those seem like more personal things there, and I liked getting that.
Yeah,
I didn't like not getting the sister stuff, but hopefully we get that again in the future.
I don't think Timothy Zahn, with how much effort he put into the world building of the Chiss Ascendancy, will drop it. He'll probably come back to it, and Star Wars loves him, so I think that he'll get the chance if he wants to do it eventually. What's going to happen after the Heir to the Empire movie? Or the Grogu Mandalorian movie, which I'm assuming is Heir to the Empire.
Yeah, is that connected to that? Yeah. I've heard the movie was next, then I heard there's a season 2 of Ahsoka, and then maybe a movie after that? Or is the Grogu Mandalorian I don't know. I don't know exactly what they're doing, so
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But, you know, just in terms of, I don't know if you have anything else for this book, but in terms of this trilogy, like, I do think a reread would benefit me just now that I've read this one, kind of understanding, last book was a middle chapter. Don't think about it in terms of the middle chapter from the previous thing.
Yeah.
Think about it in terms of, like, the Two Towers. Like, on its own, it's cool, but I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah. Well, because the second book in the last one was, I think, the Vader one, right?
Yeah.
The Vader and Anakin, like, back and forth. And, like, by the end of it, I'm like, oh, man, I love that story. That was probably one of my favorites with Thrawn and Vader.
You also had so much
stuff,
grounding foundation.
Yeah, I did.
There's almost no grounding foundation in this last trilogy.
Sure.
You know?
No, not for me.
Everything is new.
Yeah.
Like, the names, like, I'll forget as I read them. You know, I could be like, you know, I could say a name and then close the book. I'm like, what was it? Crap. And I do agree in the sense of, like, you know, when I read books in other eras, especially ones that I know visually really well, it is so much easier to imagine what the author is trying to tell you, as opposed to here where, like, everything is kind of brand new. But especially in terms of, like, I don't know why, it's really important for me to know what the silhouette of a ship is. For me to really, like, imagine what it's like, and, you know, you just can't do that sometimes. So the order is Mando movie, then Ahsoka season 2, and then Filoni's film.
Okay, that's the order.
So Mando movie and Filoni's film is not the same thing, right?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
No, because I don't think the Mando movie was what they talked about at the last Celebration when they said about Filoni working on a new movie.
Yeah,
I thought that was implying the next one, but maybe not, and maybe they changed them. I don't know. They changed stuff a lot, so it's hard to tell. The Mando's directed by Favreau.
Yeah, I think the movie is theoretically just like a season 3, but movie.
Season 4.
Yep, you're right.
Right? Okay.
4.
I was like, isn't it? Okay.
You're right.
So like whenever we had Celebration, when they did Celebration, they said that there was a Filoni movie they were working on.
Yep.
There was the New Jedi Order with Rey, and then there was like the way back First Jedi kind of story.
Yeah.
And so this one now, the Grogu Mandalorian story, is a new one that they've put in there too. So, all right. I do want to see if there's any questions or anything. There's some things that I know that, like, you know, going through this, I've either forgotten or I didn't pick up right away. We didn't even talk about what's his name? Kalori?
Yeah.
Like, he was like another, like, he was like a Skywalker, but not a Skywalker.
Yeah.
And like his story I thought was interesting because he was like working a lot with Jixtus, but like kind of in the middle of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought his story was kind of interesting.
Sure.
And by the end of it, I was like, oh, good. Yeah, shoot him. So, but I'm curious on any thoughts or anything that maybe we missed that, you know, anyone who read the book or anything that was like, oh, man, did you guys catch this stuff or did you like this? But there's definitely a lot of stuff that I'm sure we could touch on. Nexus just sent one in and says, saddest part of this trilogy is how good friends Thrawn and Arlani were. And he reckons he'll be back very soon after his exile, but gets sucked into the Empire. I mean, yeah, he says I think he says 6 months, maybe a year.
He gets sucked into the Empire, then he gets sucked into a space whale, and then he gets sucked into a new galaxy.
Yeah, he
He's
gets
pretty
absorbed
far
into
away from
how long's
his
it
old
been?
friend.
And when Arlani sees him again, treason. It's been, I don't know how long, years-wise, of him being in the Empire. And when Arlani sees him again in Thrawn treason, the relationship is just gone.
Sure, yeah.
That is a very sad thing because, I do feel like she was there wanting Thrawn not to be exiled, and then here's what the reason is and stuff, and it's kind of more accepting of it. And it is a very sad moment there.
Yeah, definitely is.
Alice says, as we just finished Thrawn books, what about Tales of Ascendancy, focusing on the families or Arlani, or even Eli Vanto? That could be kind of cool. I do like that. I
would always love more Eli Vanto.
Anything visual for me to be able to see what they do artistically, and then I can pull that for whenever I read these books of the Chiss Ascendancy and have that's what one of their, that's what the Gray Shrike.
Yes, the Gray Shrike.
The Gray Shrike looks like. That's what the man, I wrote down more of the ship names and stuff too, but they escape me in the moment. But getting to see more of those, and I think that would be really cool.
Speaking of more Eli Vanto, I also, when I was looking up some reviews, I saw some people were talking about when the guy from Expanse that plays Amos, I can't remember his name right now, but he was cast in Ahsoka.
Yeah,
and he ends up playing
Enoch.
But people were like, "That's Eli Vanto," and I was going like, "That would be kind of cool having him play Eli Vanto."
That could be cool. How did he get there?
What?
How did Eli Vanto get to the Enoch thing?
Well, no, people were just speculating because they announced that actor was going to be in Ahsoka. They were trying to figure out who he could possibly play.
Oh, so before
it was before it came out. Yeah, like I said, a lot of the reviews are from 3 years ago for this book,
Sure.
So this is people speculating, and I just, because I didn't see it back then, I saw it now. People being like, I bet you he's playing Eli Vanto. Like, if I'm wrong, I'll eat my shirt, that type of thing. So I don't really I don't really go out and look at a lot of discussions about stuff coming out now, but I kind of like going back about stuff that I'm reading now that happened then, and it's you see these little time capsules of speculation.
I get you. It's like I don't like to look at things for movies or shows, but after I'm done, maybe I'll go back and look now, and you see speculations maybe that were happening early on in a season or something,
theories that never came to pass.
Yeah,
you'd be like, that's
a
cool,
neat
though.
idea. I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
I get you.
Okay. I'll touch on Nexus here, who also said, also in Thrawn, treason. 17 years later, Arlani tells Thrawn the Ascendancy is on the brink of civil war, so things must be rough in Thrawn's absence.
Well, shocker.
I mean, that's what Jixtus was pushing, right? He was pushing civil war, and it almost happened. It was getting close.
He was good at what he did. If it wasn't for Thrawn, he probably could have done it.
Yeah.
It's not like those guys aren't looking for excuses to fight. I feel like sometimes.
Yeah, so they're so against each other back and forth. So,
but they had that unifying philosophy. But yeah, good trilogy. Looking forward to the next Thrawn thing we get, which I'm assuming is going to be the movie.
At
eventually.
least Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah, I would say so.
Maybe not Grogu and Mando.
Maybe not.
Unless, the thing you could have is Grogu and Mando see Thrawn arriving in our galaxy and has to deal with that, while Ahsoka season 2 is dealing with what's happening over there and then them getting back, maybe, because they have to get out of there.
Sure.
So you could kind of combine those a little bit, maybe, but at the same time, maybe not do that. People might complain about man, why is the next Mandalorian stuff happening in Book of Boba?
Yeah, right.
And I was like, well, okay, don't mix your peanut butter and chocolate. It's not good. Keep it separate. So, but yeah, I enjoyed this. I did end up liking this by the end with what we got of Thrawn and getting to see more of getting a little bit more of him and how he's in Rebels and how he's in live action, and I'm a little bit more. When we talked about the last trilogy, sometimes we were talking about this trilogy of books don't seem to really fit as well with what we see in Rebels.
Yeah.
But I think now we get a little bit more of that. Sure. So, and maybe some of that built over time of Thrawn, of Zahn, writing them and then going in like, oh, I get to do a trilogy. Let me really kind of, what do I want to do? And then he kind of like
develop over a very long time.
Yeah. So that could be. 'Cause he also like writing those other books. I mean, he was a little bit more limited in like where he was putting that, right? Like, well, Thrawn's here in Rebels, so he'll leave here. So this takes place over like this week.
Yeah. He has all new characters he can play with.
Yeah, he can do a lot more with that. But no, real fun. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to more Thrawn. I mean, Thrawn's become one of my favorite characters since Rebels started. Yeah. How did this compare? You read the Heir to the Empire like trilogy, right?
Yeah.
Thrawn's in that, and
he is.
I believe when we talked about before, like this is him as like a protagonist.
Yeah.
That
he's
is him
definitely
as
the
an antagonist, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel like these 6 books that we've read and seen him compare with like whatever you remember from that from years ago?
It's hard to compare just because I have nostalgia for the old Thrawn, and I feel like that matches Rebels way more.
Okay.
Or at least that characterization way a bit more. But I mean, I have room in my heart for both. In terms of like direct comparisons, I mean, this one is Thrawn centric, whereas Heir to the Empire has Luke and Han and Leia and all the stuff that you're expected of with Star Wars.
You're in our galaxy with those characters
and firmly in the Empire. This one I enjoy separately for just being able to appreciate and learn more about the Chiss culture, and I can bring that type of thing for whenever if I end up playing the Old Republic as an Imperial agent Chiss, I can now bring in a lot of extra lore building of what my character would be like.
Yeah.
What
are you going to name your character then?
Exactly.
Do you pull it from one of the families?
I know. I got to pick a family, yeah. So I can appreciate it in that way.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that it's going to be very hard to beat, like me discovering a new Star Wars trilogy when I was young in the library.
Sure. Yeah. Especially in the time where it's like there is no more visual version of it, right?
And that had Joris Kaboth, who was this like mad clone Jedi. He was a clone of a Jedi, so he goes crazy and he shoots force lightning like this. Like it's hard to compare.
Gotcha. So you have Palpatine.
Yep.
You have that guy.
Dooku does this.
Dooku. Yeah.
This guy does this.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
I think I have a Joris Kaboth over there.
Neil Boyce said, would you guys ever do a podcast about the original Thrawn trilogy? I just finished it for the first time, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
I would love to. I mean,
the only non-canon book we did was the Death Troopers.
Yeah, we did Death Troopers, which is a Legends book.
Yeah, and I just tried to push that in because I've always wanted to read it. I loved like the zombie trooper idea, and it was for October. So
I'll amend that by saying yes, I would love to. As soon as we get through all the canon stuff. Next is how long will that take us? Just because there's a lot to catch up on,
Sure, yeah. There's
a
lot.
The Death Troopers was good just because it was Halloween themed.
Yeah, I just wanted to there's not a lot of horror Star Wars, I don't think, and I wanted to pull that in there. Yeah. I think we said about that. Next was like, oh man, but what about this?
I know.
What about the canon stuff?
I know.
So,
well, after that, we do have another book we're going to be covering next, Badonkagonk. That is Reign of the Empire, The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed.
The Mask of Fear.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this is a book that's going to pair very well with those of us that are going to be watching Andor, because I believe it's supposed to be kind of like Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, Saw Gerrera stuff.
Oh, really? In this book?
It's also one of the newer books as well.
Okay, that's cool. I know those characters.
We know those characters. I think for Andor last time, we did the Saw Gerrera and Jyn Erso book, right? Rebel Rising or something like that.
Yeah, we did 2 books around those times, Catalyst and Rebel Rising. Rebel Rising was the one we did for that, yeah.
So we'll be doing this one. So if you guys are interested to follow along, please do. And it will be, apparently it's going to be a trilogy, someone says, but it's the first recently released book that we'll be doing while Andor is airing. So jump in.
Okay, cool.